We'll jump right on in. Today we are going to talk about our archetypes. And much like maybe some of you, I was really surprised. If you don't know who I am, I'm Renee Barabo, the Practical Shaman. And the other day, I think it was Sunday or Monday, I did this quiz, and more than 550 people have viewed the quiz, and over 300 people have finished it. And it was fascinating because the quiz was spread out. I've done quizzes where I thought maybe my questions were off, but on this particular quiz, the questions were spread out equally, and two archetypes really topped the list. They were the soul rememberers and the seeker of clarity. And the sacred rebuilder was a third, they were like 22%, and the smallest percentage was the pilgrim. Now, interestingly enough, the person that reached out to me personally directly about the quiz was a pilgrim. And I thought, and we talked about it because she had lost track of her results, which I sent to her. And then, sure enough, she ended up ordering a Pilgrim's Guide to Walking Wisdom because that makes sense. And I did this quiz because I was like, okay, who are the travelers and what are the travelers and what are the groups of people that traveling and pilgrimages are appealing to? And it was really quite surprising because only 12% identified as a pilgrim, and that made me smile. And it made me also realize that maybe we don't start as pilgrims. Maybe there's something else that is going on in our lives. Like when I walked the Camino a couple years ago, there was something that triggered that event. And it might have been that I needed to remember my soul first. And what happened for me was I was at an airport. I got a phone call that somebody had died. And that death was triggering, but right following it were two more deaths. So there was this thing going on about death that I just couldn't ignore. And then out of the blue, this man, Don, that I had gone to shaman school with 20 years before, reached out and he sent me a gift. And for those of you who know me, know that I'm the wind whisperer, and I have a book, Winds of Spirit. And though some of you might not even know, you just took the quiz and you're here. So you're getting to know me. I'm Renee. And so he sent me the wind map out of the blue. What I didn't really realize is that he was cleaning things from his life. And then one day I was frozen with these deaths. One day, all of a sudden, out of the blue, this email came from somebody I hadn't gotten an email from for years that said Camino. And I was looking at it the same time I was looking at a trip to Greece. So maybe some of you are sitting there thinking, oh, I want to go here and I want to go there. But when the email came from the Camino, it was like, got to do this. So being the practical shaman that I am, I organized a group around it and we all went with my good friend Lori Lothian, and it was really amazing. But a week or two before I went, Don wrote me and said, could you walk for me? I can't walk. And I just took it very much to mean that he couldn't walk with me this year on the Camino. I didn't delve deeper. And so I'm there like, how do I walk for somebody else? And you may be in this position like when you're carrying a vision and other people are on there. So I'm there like, okay. So every morning when I got up on the Camino, I did a little video on my camera, shared it on Instagram, and I noticed lots of people were following. They were these insights, and I thought these are really quite insightful. And so I came home, wrote them down, which came into be this book, A Pilgrim's Guide to Walking Wisdom, which, by the way, won an Indie Silver Award yesterday, which is really exciting. And the insights were pretty profound, pretty simple, pretty profound. And they started me thinking like, I should do more walking journeys. But then I was thinking, where's Don? He hasn't commented. I did all of those nice videos for him and he's really quiet. But it turns out that Don passed away the day that I started walking. So in my mind, I was trying to remember my own soul, but I was also helping his soul walk home. And that still gives me the chills. But it's just the importance of when we're thinking about taking a walk or a pilgrimage, how important it can be. But this quiz reminded me of something more, that this archetype reveals about how you're walking through this moment in time. Maybe not every moment in time, but how you might be walking through your life at this time. Because these pivotal moments come, and if we're not really sure of where we are in our own time, it's really, I wouldn't say there's ever a wasted moment, but we can enrich our lives more deeply, more fully, when we really know, oh, oh yeah, I'm remembering my essential nature. Oh, this is a time of, where do I belong? It helps us move from self-recognition to self-judgment to self-recognition. And I think that's a really important thing for these times, because I know from a lot of the teaching that I've been doing that people are really seeking the truth of who they are, the truth of what's going on around them. And it's really an important time to really come home to ourselves and know what's going on for us. So I'm going to go through all of the archetypes, the popular ones and the ones that you might relate to in another time or another step of your movement. So listen to them all, and then we're going to take a journey with the wind to find out what this information is trying to teach us right now. And I don't have somebody watching the chat, so if anyone's there and they're watching the chat, please feel free to comment, and I'll check all of your comments out later, and then we will. Oh, there's comments. Oh, do you want to share what archetype you are right now? That would be great. And if you don't know, you can just trust the flow, and that the journey is going to reveal itself to you. All right? So the first archetype that we're going to look at is the soul rememberer, because that's really the most popular one. Now, I would have thought people taking a travel quiz were going to be pilgrims, but really, we're trying to remember who we are. What is that essential self? Where do I belong now? Do I belong on a journey, or do I belong in the woods? Do I belong in my own yard gardening? What is feeding my soul at the moment? And as we recognize ourselves, we go really more deeper with our coming home to us. I want to ask a question for this group, or for everyone listening. What have you forgotten about yourself? Last night I had a powerful realization. A year ago I got laid off from a job, and I want to teach full time, and it's a lot of you know who are trying to teach full time. It's a struggle to get students to keep filling up classes, to keep promoting classes, all of it, to lead trips, to get people to take your trips. It's a struggle. All of a sudden, I was sitting on the couch last night, looking out at the harbor, which Spirit brought me. Spirit gave me this view, right? And I thought to myself, why are you not remembering that your soul is in alignment with Spirit, and Spirit always takes care of you? Even when it's not the way you think it's going to look, but when I remember at the deepest level of my soul that Spirit has my back, I thought, I took a deep breath. So if anyone is remembering that, take that, oh yeah. And for me, it's the winds have my back. And sometimes if I go to the essence of it, it's, wow, I've never been dropped on my head. And that's the level of soul remembering that's really important. Many of you, also, the second biggest one was the seeker of clarity. And we're talking about like why we travel, what we're traveling through now, and what future am I looking up for? And a lot of you are looking for clarity. And for those of you who are seeking clarity, you may be standing at a crossroads. And we're all at that crossroads, because As the world is, nature is having its own unfolding at this time, and it's really disruptive. So being at a crossroads is a really pivotal time. And so I think a lot of people are seeking clarity around how to trust your inner knowing. That's huge. There's so many things coming from us. I've had people like, I'm thinking I might come to Peru with you, but they're like waiting for that inner knowing. They're waiting for that sign. Let me tell you, here's your sign. If you're standing at the crossroad debating about whether or not you want to go deeper and get more clarity in your life, there's nothing like a walking trip, whether it's mine or another one. Walking, it is cleared by walking. So if you're confused, go outside today and take a wind walk. And there's an important thing like discernment versus certainty. Okay? When you're making two choices, for example, today I'm choosing between pennants, and they both look really good. So what do I have? If both choices are good choices, how do I discern which is the right choice for me? We have to listen beneath the noise. And for me, that listening beneath the noise means waiting for the wind, waiting for that answer. It might be a feather on the path for you. It might be an oracle card. How do you know what's an absolute yes for you? It's muscle testing, it's pendulums, whatever that is that helps you see clarity is definitely this crossroad. And no, one of the things that I've learned in life that take 3 steps down a path and it will always show you quick whether that's the right path. Think about yourself in the woods. You take a veer off to the left and all of a sudden you're there like, oh, this isn't the way I want to go. What do? Do you keep walking on that path? No, you turn around, go back to that intersection and take the path that's going to lead you to the rock, to your home, to the car. And we get to make choices. And that's the beautiful thing about seeking clarity. So for those of you who are seeking clarity, what I would like to ask you is, what truth keeps returning? Now see, there overlap. What have you forgotten about yourself? What truth keeps returning? And then as we move on, a great big percentage of you, not as big as the seeker of clarities and the soul rememberers, but the sacred rebuilder. And I applaud everyone in the sacred rebuilder. It usually means that something has just blown up in your life and you have to rebuild. And that, go back to that story I told you about the 3 deaths. I was standing at the airport going home to my place and I got a call from somebody saying, hey, my brother passed away in your house today. Now that was a disruptor. And I had to rebuild. I had to rebuild my relationship to my house because it had been my temple, my place. And all of a sudden it had been disrupted for me by a death. And what was the most shocking thing as a shaman was they're like, you help spirits move on all the time. You've been a death doula since you were in your 20s before you knew shamanism. And yet I was frozen. And so I had to find out what my life was like after this disruption. And I had to go back. I had to go back and revisit simple tools that I use. I had to go to a friend who did some EFT. I had to get some therapeutic things because I was frozen. So for sacred rebuilders, you could either be moving, frozen, taking flight. So look in your life right now and think, what's being ready to be rebuilt in my life? And maybe it's not even from the urgency of a death, but it could be from It could be from wisdom. Wow, I've been at the end of this path for a long time. I haven't taken a trip in a long time. I've ever since we had a lockdown several years ago, I haven't been so comfortable to travel. So maybe you need to get your travel chops back up. What is it for you that you're rebuilding? And know that whatever's been going on in your life, it hasn't been wasted time. You've been creating better, solid foundations. Because as we circle around the cycle, and if you're at all familiar with wind work, you know that it's about the cycles, not that you go through the wind work once. It's how you hold the wind as you cycle through your experiences. And if you're new to the wind, you're going to get a taste when we do our journey in a few minutes about calling to a wind and asking the wind to reveal something to you about no matter which category you're in. We're going to go and get information that's going to help us as we travel through this experience, which is life. It doesn't necessarily mean buying a plane ticket, a train ticket, a bus ticket, getting in the car. It means you are a life traveler. And how are you working on that at this time in your life or playing with it? The smallest percentage, and this was the shock because remember, I wrote the book, A Pilgrim's Guide to Walking Wisdom. I thought, oh yes, there's going to be 80% pilgrims who are going to take this test or quiz. It wasn't a test, it was a quiz. And the pilgrims were like a small 12%. And we're talking over 550 people have taken this quiz so far, and only a small percentage of them are pilgrims. And those pilgrims out there who have either evolved into that pilgrim state or are thinking about taking a pilgrimage, you're answering a deeper call. Hey, I've done all of that outside work. I want to know who I am. I want to walk with that intention. When we say we take wind walks, some are really intentional. Some are what's for dinner. When we go outside, we ask the wind for, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? And the wind reveals something, but this is an intentional call. How do I walk more deeply in my life? And you allow the journey to shape you. That's what happened for me when I was walking the Camino. Every day I would do these insights and then I would start to walk. And I walked with a question. So the pilgrims are the ones who are walking with a question. Not necessarily a why question, but a who, what, where, when, and how question. And sometimes it could be a deeper why question, and that's a longer walk. But one day, walking the Camino, I asked this question. I was feeling a little left out from the group, so I'm there like, what about me isn't fitting in with this group? And when you take a walk, I talked about it in The Seeker of Clarity, everything becomes clear quickly. Here I am on this path alone because everyone else was taking a different walk that day. And here I am out on this solo walk because I was really a pilgrim at that time. And I turn the corner and there is a field of sheep. All right? It still makes me laugh. And there's one sheep with the bell, and all of the other sheep are following the bell tender. And I was thinking about one of the groups that we had that all of the people were tending to follow their leaders. And I wasn't, even though I organized the group with my friend, I wasn't necessarily leading the walk because I had had a really tumultuous 6 months and I was there to walk for me. And so the pilgrims are there to walk for something deeper. And the journey shapes you. And this journey definitely shaped me because now I came home, I wrote a book, I'm taking people on walks. Last year we went to the Cotswolds, which I love. This year I'm taking people to Peru. And the question always becomes, what road is calling your name? And that becomes a more interesting question because if you think about like all the places you'd like to walk in your life or all the places you'd like to travel, or maybe you like to cruise, maybe you like to take road cars, which road is calling to you, which trip is calling you. And come to see from this quiz is that perhaps they're not four types of people, but they're four stages of being a pilgrim. There are four stages of walking through your own life. We remember. Once we remember, there's no turning back. Or for me, once I've remembered, I don't want to say that's true for you. Once I remember, there was no turning back. So in that situation, once I remembered that you're a healer, and what I remembered was that awakening has many levels to it. That I was really content in my life, 90% days joy, but that I was a pilgrim. I needed to go deeper. And that's what that whole experience was at my house. And then once I gained that clarity, so I remembered, I got clarity, I rebuild. And how I rebuilt was by a walk. Planning the walk. Not the walk itself, the planning of the walk, getting the group together to walk with me, getting the funds together to do it, to buy clothes. My friend just went to China, and for months I watching her get all her gathering her stuff, the knapsack and what's going in there and what clothes you're going to take. That's the rebuilding phase. And you can take it to a trip or you can take it to your life. And then you walk. And the walk is the part that changes everything. When you actually become that pilgrim, when you actually take that walk. Because the wisdom is always found in the listening. So let me see if there's any questions in here. I bet you will always be a pilgrim, Adriana. You are one of the pilgrims. And one of the things you remind me of when I was younger, and this doctor told me, I don't remember a lot of what he told me, but he told me that I started seeking too early in my life. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, seeking too early. I thought, bravo for me. And he said, Renee, when you reach menopause, a lot of this stuff won't matter anymore. But the problem is you're in your 20s and you've got about 30 years to go. So you are a seeker. So many of you who started really young might understand this, that there was no stopping the seeking. Some people, my mother would say, oh, you should have had children. If you had children, you wouldn't have been so self-absorbed. And I was self-absorbed, and I still can get self-absorbed. But this idea that I was a seeker first has always been the leader in my life. When I was in my late 20s, this astrologer said to me, Renee, you're married to Spirit this lifetime. So if Spirit says, get on an airplane, you're going to Peru, by golly, you're going to be on that airplane going to Peru. And it won't matter to anyone else what anyone else really needs in your life, because if Spirit calls you, go. So those people who have that pilgrim's life, and I'm a 9 soul, 9 life, some years are 9, and it's deep. So there's tools to find out more about yourself. And one of these tools that we use in the Wind Clan is the Windwalker Wisdom Oracle. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a journey. And we're going to, first before we go on the journey, put in the chat, are you a soul rememberer, a seeker of clarity, a sacred rebuilder, or a pilgrim? And if you haven't taken the quiz, you might as well wait until after the journey now, because you might get a different answer, or you can listen to this again later. So in this Windwalker Wisdom Oracle, and people who have studied, and like we have some new people, so people who have studied with me with the wind know that these winds are spirits. When I first started working with the winds, I thought they were a metaphor. But then when we started calling up these winds, how old was I when I did the Camino walk? Oh, I did the Camino walk 2 years ago. So an old lady never tells her age, but I will tell you, I was 66 years old when I did the Camino walk. And I walked 118 miles. You don't have to do 300 miles to get the experience. You have to go with intention. It's like the people who are coming to Peru, not everyone's going to hike to the top of Machu Picchu. But the people who, when I did Salkantai, the people who had the biggest experience were the people who came with the right heart. And I think that's heart intention, knowing the question. I think the question, and if you don't know what question you're asking in your life, I really recommend this book. And now that it's won a silver award, oh, it's even more exciting. But it has great questions, small chapters, good questions to ask yourself when you're walking to get clear. I would love a Windwalker Oracle, but I'm in the UK. I send them to the UK, and I believe the College of Psychic Studies has a couple of decks left. All right, any other questions? Okay, we've got Seekers of Clarity. Oh, we got a Pilgrim in the group. Good. Let's see, just want to make sure. Yeah, when you're a pilgrim, like I said, these are evolving archetypes. Just maybe I'll put them on my medicine wheel to see where they are. Like, are some of these in the east, some of these in the south, some of these in the west and north? This is how new work is born. All right, so I'm going to pull an oracle card for this journey. This is interesting. So we got Shu. And Shu is separation, about grounding yourself in nature. So perhaps, and I'm just guessing for me that for this journey, Shu is asking you to pick one of these four archetypes and journey to that archetype. Instead of going from all of them, I'm going to choose one for this, and I'm going to go to learn about that archetype and how it lives in me. Now, trust me, I didn't know about this, because that's the one thing about when you go live with a journey. You never know really where you're going. You can have the whole thing outlined, and then the wind comes in and disrupts it. So petition Shu to create space in your life, or to see more clearly in the life's gray areas. Shu is the most ancient, not the most, is the ancient Egyptian god of the wind, atmosphere, and air, representing the space between the heavens and the earth. This makes us travelers. We navigate the space between heaven and the earth. His power keeps the sky and the earth apart, and that's what we need when we're traveling. We need the heavens and we need the earth so we can walk. So when Shu's wind appears, embrace the opportunity to separate from the past entanglements, bringing a sense of order and clarity to your thoughts. And since we're not just seekers of clarity, what I'm going to ask you for as we go for this journey is to go with one of the archetypes that maybe it's the one you want to be more aligned to, okay? So let me repeat those. I want to get them right. So for this journey, we're going to invite Shu in, and we're going to, if you're soul rememberers, you're going to ask what part of your soul wants to be remembered. If you're seeking clarity, maybe you're standing at a direction and you're going to ask Shu to help you choose. If you're a sacred rebuilder, what is the next step in rebuilding for you? And if you're a pilgrim, what are you walking? Where are you walking? How are you walking? And then you're going to ask, everyone's going to ask, what is one step that I can take this next week to honor this, what I've remembered, what I saw, what I chose? What's one step that I can take that furthers my pilgrimage? Are you ready? So I invite you to close your eyes, and I'm going to call to Shu. Take a deep wind breath in. Hold it and release anything that is not about who you are as a traveler at this moment. And on the next wind breath in, ask Shu to come in and separate separate you so you can walk with yourself as a traveler on the ground and the heavens above, and we're going to walk on this path through nature. And on this third wind breath in, move yourself into your favorite spot in nature with the help of Shu. Now close your eyes. See yourself in nature, and ask Shu, come here with me. Help me separate out the earth from the sky so I can see the path that I'm on clearly. As you start to walk, ask, am I trying to remember my soul? Am I seeking clarity? Is my soul requiring me to rebuild? Am I walking towards a deeper knowing of myself? Am I a pilgrim? And be with whatever answer comes for this journey. And then just start to walk down this sacred path. Is there an obstacle to get there? Maybe a bridge, a river, a busy city street. Call to Shu, the separator, and remove those obstacles. Remembering. What do I need to see? What needs to be rebuilt? What is the next path that I take? Feel the wind at your back as you move through this. And now ask, what is one small step I can take this coming week that will help me remember, that will give me clarity? That can help me rebuild. That can help me walk further, deeper, more inspired. inspired. Now turn around and come back the same way you came. Thanking Shu, thanking the wind. Now just take a minute to jot that down. And I'd be curious if you got the same archetype, a new archetype. Was there a small step you want to share in the chat of what you learned? What's your next step? Did any of you get the next step to come to Peru with me? Yay! You have a few months now between now and October, but it's time to commit. And let me see what they say. Oh, someone had a shaman perform a soul remember years ago. That's great. One small step for us. What would that be? One small step that you got to take next week? Sometimes we want to eat that whole elephant, but really we only need one little bite out of the butt. So what's that one step everyone got to take for next week? And then I'll come back here and check this. So if you're like got out there and you have to think about it for a minute, I'll come back or message me privately if it was too private. And I want to remind you that this is a great book to take your next step for next week. One of the insights is drop the should-haves, could-haves, and would-haves. And what it does is it has a really short chapter because it's a small little book. Not like my next book that's coming out next spring, The Practical Shaman. One of the questions that I just opened to was, what rigid beliefs or expectations do you find yourself holding on to, and how can you begin to let them go? Wow, that was like a perfect question for Forrest, who just was like, what are my expectations? For years I thought, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be that. And when I let those expectations drop, who I really was revealed to me. The author of Winds of Spirit, and I'm thinking, you want me to write a book about the wind? It was like quite a surprise. So you can start by ordering up the book. I would love the people listening who are questioning their intentions for walking to come with me to Peru this year. And if you can't come to Peru, that doesn't mean you can't stay connected. And then if you do want to stay connected, I'm doing a monthly circle. This month it's the solstice. It's about returning to the sacred self, which actually falls right in line with what we're doing today. And you can learn more about my sacred circles over at windwork.org or all of my stuff over at thepracticalshaman.com. Let's see if there's any more questions. Anyone have a question? Oh, interesting. Confidence came up for you as an obstacle. So what's one step next week that you can do that shores up your confidence? It might be, sometimes it might be going back to a simple healing you learned a long time ago and getting practice with it. For me, I get a lot of people who call and ask me to read the oracle for them. And going back there and they say, oh yeah, years ago you told me this. And that little sacred remembering of, oh yeah, I've done that before, I know how to do that, and I can build upon that, is such an important lesson. Oh, you read my book before you said it. That's funny. Someone about Peru. Perry showed up in your journey. Who's Perry? Perry or Carrie? Oh, Peru. Oh, yay. Peru showed up. Peru, I went to Peru many years ago before I was really on what I would consider, what I considered, my whole life is a sacred journey, as is yours. But I went to Peru when I was really naive about what that looked like. I just, why I went really was because my teachers in the north were being what I thought mean to me. And I found the people in Peru to be way more generous with their hearts and their experience. And so I was struggling with the practice that I had and the person I was becoming. And Peru really opened that up to me because I thought, wow, these people are full of heart. How do I have some of that? And I've spent the next 20 some years learning about that. I've been to Peru about 5 or 6 times. I haven't been back in years because I thought, wow, we're trampling all over their traditions. But now, with the wind at my back and my own body of knowledge, that basically mine has started there, but that I'm going back with new eyes, new sacred eyes, to see what the land has for me, what those sacred epus want to teach me. Not so much like I want somebody to go there and show me something. I want to go there and walk the land and feel the land and see how the land informs my next steps. Oh, Dina, that's so important, that walking with kindness. One time when I was leaving an organization, and I left some things pretty windy, as you might guess, but he told me to walk in peace. And I thought that was some like door slamming, and it was a kind of a door slamming, but this idea of walking peace, it took me many years to understand what that meant, walking peace, how I take every step peacefully. That in keeps us separate from the peace, but think about it, walking peace. Oh, Asangate was where I went to first, and I loved Asangate. I went up 17,000 feet to the Rainbow Lagoon, and it was the most magical place I'd ever seen. But then I did Salkantay the next year, and Salkantay, the untamed feminine, is really a good name for that mountain because there was times that I thought, how am I going to take another step? So somebody has injuries, and when the year before I walked, I just want to say this because injuries are often an indication that something deeper in us needs to heal. The year before I started walking, I tripped over a box in the garage because I have these lines in my glasses and I don't ever really see down very well. And I hurt my shin. And literally I couldn't walk in around the neighborhood or anything for almost a year. And so by the time I healed that and I took the walk, and I was able to walk the Camino 118 miles, 12, sometimes 20 miles a day. And it was a year later. And I think that whole other piece about stopping to make sure that when I walked again, I did it with a lot more sacredness, a lot more reverence. And I'm not saying that's your experience, but the healing is definitely a pilgrimage in itself. You can go through all of those phases on a pilgrimage. Anyone else have any questions or anything? Because I was going to do this, I want to answer it, and I'll come back in there. But I hope that these sacred archetypes, and if you're listening to this later, and if you haven't taken the quizzes in the chat, as well as I'll put the links to books and everything in the chat. And I want to tell you how walking changed my life. Walking changed my life. When I got frozen, I started to walk again, and it wasn't with all the pomp and circumstances of going to a spiritual retreat or any of that. It was the sheer act of walking. Last year on the Cotswolds, I watched people walk through some things that were really difficult for them. And recently I was talking to one of the women who had gone, and she said, oh yeah, I found a new relationship to my work. Because when she went, she was, how do I get out of this work? And now she's there, I found a new relationship and I think I can stay there a lot longer, or a while longer. What's a lot? But we think we're doing one thing. When Shu separates the earth from the sky and you walk, you get a whole different experience. So that's really all I had. The walk gives us the wisdom to know the difference of what's going on in our lives. So I'm Renee, the Practical Shaman. Stay with me. Go over to thepracticalshaman.com. I hope I see some of you at the solstice gathering, returning to the sacred self. And maybe some of you are going to join me in Peru. And all of you should support getting my book back to #1, since it is a prize-winning book for an indie. My next book is published by Inner Traditions, The Practical Shaman. I saw the book cover, and it's coming out in the spring. All right, it's Renee signing off. Thank you for joining me.